the city of the strong. In him is where I belong. I am the city of the strong. In him is where I belong. I'm unmovable, I'm unshakable, I'm unstoppable because of the great I am. I am the city of the strong. In him is where I belong. I am the city of the strong. In him is where I belong. I'm unmovable.
A little bit to do, so I'm going to share and just declare the word over you so that we will be able to do all that God has for us for today. We are talking about the king is in the field, and if you were here this morning, Brenda did an amazing job of setting us up. Pastor Brenda, God bless you and thank you. We really talked about the king being in the field. And what that really means is that there was a day that the Old Testament was pointing to, the day that we're in now, that there would be access to the king, that it wouldn't be limited to a day or a moment, but that anytime you called his name, there would be something called what? Access. Say access. I got access. I have access to the king. So there was a day that we would not be looking for him, standing in long lines, unable to get through security, unable to get to the palace, unable to get in there, but every now and again seeing a glimpse of maybe him passing a window or standing out on a balcony. But no, he has become available. And the Old Testament began to point to what was coming. It was a type and a shadow of the day and the hour that Christ would actually dwell among his people. And so we are in that hour and in that moment that just the mention of his name, just the mention of his name and the presence of a holy God begins to rest upon us. Just the mention of his name. If you begin to sing songs to him, you don't even have to sing on cue, I understand, because I don't. You just sing to him, and suddenly his presence overwhelms us. When you begin to think on him and all of his goodness, right? And you begin to think about how he healed me, how he delivered me, how he raised me up, all of a sudden presence hits my being, hits my spirit, and my life changes because of the goodness. See, there was a day and an hour that he's no longer in the field waiting for people to come and approach him, but suddenly he is an ever-present God that is forever in your life. Where's Lily? That is forever in your life. Yeah, forever in your life. He is an ever-present God. And this is what we need to understand. He is ever-present. Just call his name. And see, when you really get to know him, there's power in just the calling of his name, see. There's power in, see, because embodied in his name is everything you need. See, there comes a day and an hour when you just call him. I know you don't understand. I know you don't understand because you would have went crazy if you understood. See, when you get to know him, you don't have to use a lot of words. When you know your mama, your daddy, they don't use a lot of words. They call your name a certain way. And everything is in the way they called you. You know when they mean business. And you know when you better drop everything and move. You know when you better get there like it was yesterday, that when by the time they look to the side, you better be there. You know that because of how they called you. You know that when they're calling you and it's in play and it's in fun because of the tone of their voice and how they call you. You know when they're being empathetic and you know when they're concerned. That's how it is when you call his name. When you call his name, everything that you are trying to say is in that one word, Jesus. You don't have to use a lot of words. You don't have to use a lot of things to say to get his attention. When you know him, you'll just say Jesus, and everything is in that name. And just like that, he's not in the field somewhere. He's not out in the palace field waiting for you to show up. He has shown up in your world, in your life, in your business, in your paperwork, in your job, in your house, in your bedroom, honey, in your bathroom, in the shower. He has suddenly in your car on the way to work. He has showed up and he is dwelling and communing with you in those places because he is God. Some of us take it for granted because we just feel like that's the way it is. But the truth of the matter is we need to be careful lovers of this great God. We need to be careful lovers of this great King. We need to be careful lovers of how we love him, that he is an ever-present omnipresent God that is sustaining us, keeping us on our feet. The word I want to declare over you is this. It's really, the word is on down in verse 16, but I want to share verse 1 because what you hear in this, in the weight of the writer, there's a weight in what the writer is saying, that he says something like this. He said, let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left us of entering into his rest. Now, in order to enter, in order to understand the rest and to understand what God is saying, we have to get to the point that we get it. And part of it is that we may not get it. We may be thinking of rest as in naturally. We may be thinking of rest as in sleep. But the real rest, you have to go back to Joshua. And you have to go back to him crossing the Jordan. If you're going to understand, he was telling them, beckoning them, Sister Anitra, to come on into a promised land. Come on into a place that's flowing with milk and honey. Come on into my presence. Don't neglect this. Don't think that your job is better. Don't think that your family cruises is better. Don't think that you're kicking it and playing is better. Don't think that you got it going. Don't think that something else is better. But he says, don't forget, don't you fear, and don't you mishandle entering into my rest, into the supernatural presence of God that will heal you, deliver you, and set you free. This is what he was trying to say. I'm going to wait a minute for everybody to sit down. I'm going to wait. Yeah, that's better for you to be still. By the time I get up, yeah, a lot of movement, I get distracted. I forgot what I'm talking about. Y'all ain't ready for that. Ready? Our hearts and minds clear? Here we go again. So this has to do with Joshua. It goes all the way back to their promise. You're talking about what rest? Out of Egypt. Well, wait a minute. What was Egypt? See, you don't remember. Egypt was a place of bondage. Egypt was a place called sin. Egypt was the place where we were beaten with many stripes. It was a place where we were in trouble and needed deliverance. The Egypt place is what God came to break them out of. The place called bondage. The place called breakthrough. Jesus came to get them, or rather he sent his servant Moses in to get them, and he sent them some plagues and some trials that said, you got just so much time to let my people go. The devil got just so much time before he has to let his people what? Go. It ain't gonna be like that forever. You're not gonna be in bondage forever. You're not going to be entangled forever. You're not going to be set there. The minute that your mind gets the revelation, you'll see how easy it is to come out. The minute the light shines in that area, you'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe I spent that much time. Oh my God, I can't believe. See, this is why we come to the throne of grace, that we might obtain mercy and grace. Because this is the deal, that we were just like that. We were just like that. And we believe what we believe when we were just like that. We were just that angry. We were just that confused. We were just that entangled. But the light shone in darkness. Where was the darkness? It was dwelling in me. The darkness was in me. I lived out of the darkness. I produced whatever kind of life out of darkness. But we forget what sin looks like, because he cleans us so well and so good that we can't remember what it was like when we were smoking. We can't remember what it was like when we was slumming. We can't remember what it was like when we were trapdoor. We were doing that thing. We could have, listen, that's okay. I'm talking to somebody else because they act like they don't know. They looking real pious. They don't remember what it was like when we were skinning and grinning, right? They don't remember, but we were right there. And when we get saved, God cleans us so well that we don't even hardly remember. And what we become is judgmental. We begin to look down our nose at others that are in the fight and in the struggle. They trying to get clean too. They trying to figure out their way. And when they come to the house, they don't find the love. They don't find the same grace. We want to be harder than Jesus. We want to be more difficult than Jesus. But he said, don't forget to enter into the rest. Don't forget to enter into the salvation. Don't forget to enter into the promise. Don't forget to enter into his grace, where there's freedom and real liberty. See, people, we promise a freedom and a liberty, but we don't know what we're talking about. We don't know nothing about it. We don't know nothing about it. But until your mind get free, until you no longer have a spirit of anger, until you have no longer a spirit of control and manipulation, you get to control everything but the person sitting next to you. You get to control everything, but you don't get to rule people. God gave you over dominion over everything, but he told your woman to walk beside you. You get to control everything but people. Yeah, they got something called free will. That's what makes a gift free. That's what makes it a free will, because it was given out of my heart, not out of control, not out of diversion. I wasn't under pressure to do it. Nobody made me. It was an act of real love. He said, don't mess up and forget to enter into his rest. Any of you should seem to come short of it. In other words, there's a promise where you don't have to live any kind of way. There's a promise that God has given. And it's talking about Elul. It's talking about the whole idea of obtaining grace and mercy. It's a whole idea that God, in the act of forgiveness and in the acts of being restored, that there is something called grace and mercy. Now, when you don't understand grace and mercy, you'll stay away from the house. When you don't understand, when you think your mother or your daddy is really mad, you'll stay away. But when you understand grace and mercy, even if you got to crawl back, you'll crawl back. And you'll crawl back because that's where you're going to find unadulterated love. That's where you're going to find a clean slate and real forgiveness. When you get to your mama's house, you're going to find that in your daddy's house, they love you in spite of you, right? Well, when you get to the household of faith, what we don't understand, come crippled, come dragging, come broken, come twisted, but just come. Because in this place, there's something called grace and there's something called mercy. You can't mess up enough to tear it up. You can't do anything enough to destroy it. You can try. You can say, well, I've done this and I've done that. God will say, come, I have room. You got to go back and remember the prodigal son. You got to go back and remember this boy lived a riotous life. He spent everything his daddy gave him, everything. The gold, the silver. He spent the rings. He sold them for nothing. He partied. He lived such a riotous life. It was raggedy. He was disrespectful. He should have been erased from the book. But instead, in spite of his raggedy self, in spite of him defiling everything, he didn't just defile the pockets. He didn't just defile the attitude. He defiled his spirit. He was in a piggy place, and he was in the pig pen, and he was just about to eat what pigs eat. And what that means, that he was fully acclimated to the pig's life. Anytime you eating what they eat, you are acclimated, you in. He was living a pretty pitiful life. It was piggy. It was defiled. It was unclean. It was unholy. It was not godly. And so anytime that you're living a train wreck of a life, that everything in your life is defiled, that's where this man was. But his daddy saw him. He came to himself. Right before he began to consume, right before he began to eat, he said, I could just see a raggedy old boy sitting out there with nappy hair. Clothes done got raggedy. Shoes is off. He muddy, got dirt everywhere. Tears is streaming down in a pitiful place. I could see the boy out there trying to feed pigs and trying to nibble off of. He said, in my Father's house, are there not just servants? And aren't they treated even better than this? His bright idea, I'll go back. And I don't have to be a son no more. I don't deserve it. I'm so dirty. Look at me. The king's son. Look at me. Look at my clothes. Look where I am. I don't deserve to be known as the son. But I can go and be a servant. And my father can just let me work for a living. I'll just work for it. He made the long journey back home. And as he made that one turn to go up the street to their home, his dad, who looked for him daily, looking for his son, saw the great, saw the walk, and ran. Now you got to know your Bible history. This culture of people didn't run. Fathers didn't run. They were stately. They were honorable. He took off running and met his son. See, in your father's house, there is safety and there is provision. And what we do is we run away from the church because we feel guilty. We feel bad for what we've done. We feel convicted. But what God says is come and receive grace and mercy. Because something has happened between Malachi and Matthew, that there is no longer death tied to your sin. Jesus died on a cross and he paid the cost. We owe the penalty of sin. So every time a man died for sin, it was justified because the wages of sin is death. And what we don't understand is that somebody paid your sin debt. That your sin debt, like your electric bill, has been paid forever. It has forever been paid. So you don't have to run and not stay away because your sin debt has been taken care of. It has been taken care of down to the tiniest part. It has been redeemed. And what we need to do is find our way to the house of the Lord. So your mind is messed up. Got all that torment rambling in your mind. We need God. If you'll make your way to worship, if you'll make your way to joy, it won't be able to rest. Your body is fatigued and going through the same remedy. If you'll make your way to worship, God will energize and strengthen you in your place of God. You are God. With the raising and lifting of your hands, God will heal you and deliver you. He'll take the weariness out. If you'll just make your way to the prayer room and allow your body rest in the presence of the Lord. See, the body rests in the presence of prayer. It's your spirit that does the work. And your body will be rejuvenated while you rest in prayer. Your body will begin to rest in the gifts and in the covenants of God. Our deal is that we don't understand it because we try to do it with our mind. And therefore our walk with God is weary and disappointed because we don't understand. You are a beloved son in whom God is well pleased. Bring your brokenness. Bring your disappointment. Bring it to the throne of grace, that you might obtain mercy. That there be no divide between me and thee. There be no divide between God and man. That we sit and dwell in a presence with him together in a place called blessings and in a place called unity. If you'll stand on your feet, I'm going to ask the ministers to come.